Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I'm playing in a Tier 8 Soviet Premium Medium Tank, the T-54 First Prototype, or the T-54 Mod 1. Now there are two Tier 8 Soviet Medium Tanks that are kind of available in the game, at least the premium variants of them. The T-44-100 is the direct competitor to this tank. I'm not going to be entirely going through the differences completely because I featured that on a video on this channel, I think last month in December, which was called T-54 Mod 1 versus T-44-100. So if you want me to compare the two tanks, go and check out that video. This video is going to be focused more on what you can do in a T-54 Mod 1 when it's out of its comfort environment. Now everybody knows the speciality of this tank is excellent hull armor, 120mm at the front, 90mm at the side, so that means that you can angle the vehicle pretty much like this to be able to get about 200 to 210mm of all-round effective frontal protection. And also the turret armor is pretty okay on this tank at 180. However, of course, when you're against an enemy team list like this, the E-75, the Emil, they've got like 250mm pens, same for the Leopard prototype, which actually has 268. The IS-3, 225 roughly, with the Lerva about there as well. The Revolurise will struggle with 200, but it can fire those premium rounds a lot like the T-34-3. Then you've got the Ferdinand, the Jagdpanther, and the Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger, which are packing, I guess, 246mm with their tank destroyer 128mm guns. So, all vehicles that can really... Wow, I can't believe that one went in on the IS-3, but you know, you miss every shot that you don't take, right? All of those vehicles are packing enough penetration to take out this tank. And so, what I'm really going to have to be working with here is pretty much a B grade, or even, I would say, a C grade Soviet medium tank again, when you are playing against higher tiered vehicles, or vehicles with just exceptional amounts of penetration. One of the worst things about the T-54 Mod 1, and one thing that was really annoying me in this tank, this game is actually from a run of games I was playing where I was really trying to focus in on crew training some Soviet medium tank crews. And so I activated some of those lovely crew experience boosters that you can get if you do the top of the tree missions that I really hope Wargaming return to. They can be really efficient. You can get those 300% crew boosters, I think, for 2 hours. And so I whacked one on this tank and really started to accelerate my Soviet medium tank crew progress. Halfway through playing that, I was starting to get immensely frustrated that I was getting put in Tier 9 and Tier 10 games very consistently. And so you can see that I've kind of reacted by just taking a hell of a lot more APCR rounds in this tank. And you know what, even the APCR rounds in this tank are going to be rather underwhelming because they have 235mm of penetration. Most of the Tier 8 premium medium tanks are starting to pack about 250, 260 when you load APCR or your heat rounds. And so the T-54 Mod 1 does feel rather underwhelming there. So I pushed my way up onto the hill after handling the IS-3 with the intent of going and flanking the Emil, who I thought would be using these locations. But that Emil is a good player on the enemy team. He knew I was going to be making my way up, and he got himself into a position, and I guess I'm just fortunate that I did catch him reloading. Panicking at the fact that, well, I didn't think panicking. It was more of a reaction to the fact that, oh gosh, there's a 120mm autoloader staring me down, and I'm not going to do very well against that in a few seconds. I wanted to slip my way off the slope to be able to avoid the Emil in the E-75. So what I really want to do right now is to stop that Emil from dominating this game. That Tier 9 Swedish heavy tank has got 12 degrees of gun depression. If he makes his way over into this location right here, which you can see with the lovely purple pings on the map, I can actually just draw it. Oh, that's really cool. There you go. He can get above the Tortoise and the AMX M4 and then just dominate them. And so what I want to do is I want to harass this Emil. I'm not really interested in fighting him right now, but I'm trying to distract him. I'm trying to stop him from taking out the Tortoise, the AMX, maybe poking the ridge over there and dealing with the Patriot. And if you can take... Oh, gosh. Talk of the devil, there's the artillery hitting me pretty hard for 421. But you know what? I guess it's better if I'm in a T-54 Mod 1 than many of the other Tier 8 premium medium tanks, because my frontal hull armor looks like it absorbed quite a lot from that artillery shell. And against many other... if I was driving many of the other medium tanks, that might have even penetrated me and pretty much taken me out of the game. So, as I was saying, what I was trying to do is just basically stop that Emil from dominating my team, but it doesn't seem to have gone very well. Oh gosh, some of our better players here have been taken out already. And look, that Patton who's here on our team, one of our top tier tanks, is not looking too healthy on 76 hit points. And so I just have to dig in right now, try and work this corner, try and stop the Jagdpanther in the E75 from coming round, or at least try and spot for the Patriot, who, oh gosh, I really think that Patriot might be AFK in base. But hopefully he'll turn up, or maybe he's just sitting there and chilling. So I put one into the tracks of the E75, we see that he fires, and now we're going to see that 235mm of APCR penetration is just not enough to consistently go through the lower plate of an E75 there. In retrospect, I wish I'd tried to shoot at the cupola of the tank. I think the cupola, or just hitting the cheeks of the turret, even though it's about 250, would have been my best bet of taking on the E75 frontally. Now we shoot the Jagdpanther too. As he tries to make his way around the corner, he uses his repair kit, so that means that if we track him again in the open, it's going to be a great result for us. But there we go, waiting for him to overturn his armor. There was a tiniest shot to be able to put one through his upper plate, but it didn't quite work out. And right now we're in a pretty ugly situation. There are still some very good top tier tanks on the enemy team, and that Emil is still a threat. But it looks like the Emil is being limited to the amount that he can do. By situating myself in this location as well, you proxy spot... Oh, did I just miss a kill there? Oh, I killed the Jagdpanther. Whoops. If you sit in this location here, you can proxy spot all the way up here, and it's one of the most important things to do. And if you don't know what I mean when I say proxy spot, well, that's the 50 meters radius around your tank, that it doesn't matter. If you even have line of sight on the enemy, you will be spotting them. So right now I realized, yeah, it's time to do something. We've now lost all of our top tier vehicles, and many of our tier 8s are wanting to just sit at the back and do precious little. And so I wanted to take my fate into my own hands here and go up onto the hill and try and fight the Emil. But remember, with 740 hit points, I am going to get two-shot by both the E75 and the Emil. And this is such a reverse situation, and I was getting myself into a very good location. One thing you'll notice that I went left around the rock to trying to give myself as much time as possible to ambush the enemy tanks. Now the Emil reacts immediately, and I put one into the top of his turret, and you might be thinking, well, that was an exceptionally well-angled turret, right? But the top of the Emil too only has 25mm of penetration, and so that means that the 100mm gun that I have will always overmatch it. Now it's just a case of slipping down the slope, putting one into the autoloader, making sure that he's not going to be able to turn around and take me out, and the E75 doesn't react in time, doesn't turn his armor away from the IS-6 in time as well to be able to take me out, and I felt fairly chipper about that, taking out two top tier heavy tanks on the enemy team, and certainly putting my team back into this one. We've got to carry pretty hard if we want to win here. But now with those two top tier heavies taken out, we can start to progress to put some pressure on the enemy tanks that seem to be just camping in the base. Now we see an IS-3 stuck at the B2 location. He should really just sit behind there until he gets some support, and I really hope he doesn't make a push through. In fact, if he sits behind there, he might lure an enemy tank into pushing at him, and then they will have lost their fairly strong location that they have in their base. Certainly one of the best camping locations for mines for tank destroyers, and it's just a shame that the southern spawn doesn't really have such an elevated location where your tank destroyers can get good shots at the enemy team, especially if they're sitting up on the hill. So we spot the Ferdinand in the open. He's turned his side armor to us, and that's great. We're going to put one into him, but it looks like our shell dips a little bit, but it's actually not a bad result because we tracked the Ferdinand and he doesn't have a repair kit. So right now, all I'm going to do is mop up these 1,500 hit points by continuing to shoot the tracks of the Ferdinand, keep him locked in place, done 510 damage to him, and we're also allowing the IS-6 and the Patriot, who doesn't look like he was AFK, to push forwards and put some pressure on our opponents. So a third shell in, the fourth shell in, and the Patriot finishes him off. Good job. Now we have turned what was looking into a very ugly situation into certainly a favourable one. And while I certainly did also fire a lot of APCR rounds so far this game, now we're making all of our credits back. Well, I'll definitely show you the profit tab in the post-game stats, so you can be the judge of whether this is a sustainable playstyle. So the Borsig, still sitting up there, he's something that we've got to watch out for. Now a Borsig has a choice of two very competitive guns on the tank. It has 128mm with 490 alpha damage, the same one that's on the Ferdinand, and it has 150mm that will have a 750 alpha damage. And with my 740 hit points, I could only take a hit from his big gun half and half. However, the artillery ambushes us. We instantly put our gun back in so we can snipe one into the Lorraine on the enemy team, and our Patriot does a good job in picking up his second kill, certainly supporting this push very well indeed. Now, the reason why establishing the alpha damage of the enemy team is very important, because then you can figure out if you can take a hit. Because when you're in a vehicle that doesn't have a bad rate of fire like the T-54 first prototype, in fact its reload time is 8 seconds and its rate of fire 7.5, well, that's not great, but it does have 750 alpha damage. You need to know if you're going to be able to thread multiple shots in for every time the enemy tank fires. But interestingly enough, the Borsig, as we saw just through the broken roof of this building in front of us, is using the 128mm gun. After the artillery shell hits us, nearly dropped an S-bomb there, artillery, and yeah, okay, I digress. Let's focus on what's going on in hand. Oh gosh. Okay, so yeah, if the alpha damage of the tank, if he was using the 150mm and the artillery shell hadn't hit us, then it would have been a 50-50 whether he had killed me. But if he was using the 128mm, then he would have certainly had to put 2 rounds into me to kill me. However, with the artillery hitting us, it means we're a one-shot for him, irrelevant of the gun that he's using, even though he's using the 128mm. Now, the Borsig pokes around the corner there, I guess expecting me to advance. He would have probably thought, oh, I've killed the Patriot. Now the T-54 Mod 1 will certainly be advancing in towards me, right? But luckily, we take his tracks off, we damage him, we take his repair kit away from him. And one of the great things about taking a repair kit away from a Borsig is it takes module damage left, right and center. That tank has absolutely no armor. And so in retrospect, I'm not sure if it'd be better to use the high explosive rounds or the AP rounds on this tank. The thing is I'm shooting at a very small part of the Borsig, and it might be a case that he goes around the corner for just a couple of seconds, and if he does that, then the high explosive rounds, even at this short to mid-range engagement, will have much lower shell velocity and be less likely to fly true towards the target. And also, if I'm shooting high explosive rounds at the tracks, they might get absorbed in there and we can't take his tracks off again, which will undoubtedly lead to a win for our team. 617 hit points on the Borsig means that I'm still going to have to shoot him 3 more times. Will he come out behind that tiny little ridge? It's neck and neck stuff. Luckily for me, the T-34 Black Edition on our team has managed to push his way in. Oh, look at that. We've got a crit on him. That's probably knocking out his gun. Maybe that's knocking out one of his crew members. Either way, it's very important to figure that stuff out. Hopefully we've damaged him. Maybe that'll be instrumental into our victory here. But we've also reduced him to 2 shots to die now. Great. Even though we've been a one-shot from the Borsig since the artillery hit us, we've managed to put 3 shells into him. Great result so far. Now, with the T-34 Black Edition sitting in the cap circle, it certainly does put some pressure on the Borsig. And right now, all I need to do is to try and distract him. I just need to make sure that I don't die. Because if I die, then it's going to be a 50-50, I guess, who kills who with the T-34B and the Borsig. And because he's in the cap circle, all the pressure is on the Tier 8 German tank destroyer right now, and so I just have to chill. Advancing would be entirely dangerous. Who's to say that the Borsig doesn't pop round the corner? I miss my shot on the move. This vehicle is certainly not the most accurate or has the best gun handling, and the Borsig could hotshot me. I just don't want to leave this T-34 Black Edition in a 1 versus 1, but 10 seconds left. 9, the Borsig has to make his move. He comes over the slope, we put 1 into him, he kills the T-34B, but he crashes to death. And immediately, seeing that he'd fired, I was advancing to close the distance, be able to use my better rate of fire to put the second shell into the Borsig to win the game, because I knew that if he killed the T-34B by going over, and I didn't miss my shots, then we would be able to secure the kill on the Tier 8 German tank destroyer. So after the battle, I was pleasantly surprised to see this was my 3rd mark of excellence in the T-54 first prototype, and I also got messaged by Galaxin, who was the Emil 2 player on the enemy team, who was congratulating me on a good result. And we ended up continuing the conversation. He seems like a really nice guy, so Galaxin, it was a pleasure to play with you, buddy. And we gained a whopping amount of experience, 9,984 for our double, but I was running a personal reserve here that gave me a 2,431 25 bonus. This was indeed 1,623 base experience points for the 4,500 damage that we dealt. Not quite a high caliber. Was that because I damaged somebody on my own team? No, it wasn't. And look at how our armor worked this game. I guess what I really did this round is, knowing that I couldn't rely on my armor against the high penetration that the enemy team had, I just had to try and avoid the shells entirely. It looks like it was only the artillery on the enemy team who did manage to hit me. And as promised, here is the amount of profit that we made from that game, 65,000 credits profit. It's the only thing that I truly hate about the T-54 First Prototype is the limited amount of ammunition that the vehicle can carry. And unlike the T-44-100, you really have to make a decision about how many APCR rounds you're going to take in the tank, which can be equally frustrating when you're wasting credits when you're engaging Tier 6 and Tier 7 opponents, but I think the feeling is far outweighed when you just feel almost useless against Tier 9 and Tier 10 tanks unless you're able to flank them or shoot their rear. So having achieved 3 marks in the T-54 First Prototype, would I be more inclined to recommend this tank? Well, certainly not. I think this vehicle was a lot more fun when it was released a couple of years ago, before all of the recent additions of premium tanks with rather high penetration on their standard rounds like the Patriot and the Scorpion and even the Mutz. And I feel like every patch that goes by, the T-54 First Prototype just feels worse and worse with regards to using its armor, which is its key strength, to be able to overcome its opponents. And realistically, the result that you saw here was nothing to do with the T-54 First Prototype, and I think I would have had an even better result in any of the other Tier 8 medium tanks that have better aim time, better penetration, better gun dispersion values, better rates of fire, better DPMs. And for me, it still feels just too random for the T-54 First Prototype with the spread of its matchmaking. When it is top tier, it just feels like this dominant beast that can drive around with immunity to the enemy's damage. But when you are fighting those Tier 9 and Tier 10 opponents, you'll wish you were playing something else. But hopefully this video was useful to you, or maybe you just enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And if you're watching this video on Tuesday the 24th of January, then I've got a bit of a special treat on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. Today I'm going to be playing through Resident Evil 7. And if, like me, you're a fan of the series and you miss the good old days from Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil 4, which were amongst my favorite games of all time, let's see if Capcom's release is a return to the greatness the series once had. And let me know in the comments what you think about the Mark of Excellence system in World of Tanks. Do you feel like it adds to the gameplay? Does it add value and interest to the game, trying to progress up, 1 marking, then 2 marking, or maybe even luckily 3 marking a tank one day? Or is it something that you really couldn't care less about, or maybe even adds frustration for you? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.